Greetings and salutations and welcome to Illegitimate Legends, the show where I like to talk about some of the more unusual League of Legends builds, and today we're taking another look at a build I did some time ago, back in Season 2 I believe, AD Mordekaiser. Now AD Mordekaiser revolves entirely around one set of statistics, which I'm going to go over right now so that you're well aware of why this works, and then I'll go into kinda how to make it work, and the pros and cons, you know, the usual stuff that I usually do. The important statistics, essentially, are the Ghost. For those of you who don't know, I'm not sure why I said that. Mordekaiser has an ultimate that deals damage to an enemy, and then while it's affecting them, if they die, he gets a copy of them. The Ghost has stats based on a combination of Mordekaiser's stats and their stats. In particular, the Ghost has their total health plus 15% of Mordekaiser's total health, attack damage equal to their base AD at level 1 plus their bonus AD from items, and 75% of Mordekaiser's total AD. They also receive 75% of Mordekaiser's AP, which is entirely useless because you can't use the Ghost's abilities. And lastly, the Enslaved Champion's base movement speed plus the bonus from Mordekaiser's boots. So they get your boots instead of the enemy boots. So there's also every other stat that they would have as a champion is just directly translated over. So things like attack speed are, to my knowledge, directly translated all the way into the Ghost. The idea here is, if you can get approximately 250 AD as your total AD, you're adding 200 AD onto the target Ghost. You pick a ranged champion in a fight, preferably someone really powerful, nuke them down completely, as fast as you can, and this requires some team coordination. And then suddenly it's a 6v4. That is the end goal. And the 6th champion on your team will be absurdly powerful. If you've stolen the enemy AD carry, just think about this. An AD carry gets, I don't know, 400 AD? Depends on the champion, because a lot of people go for more attack speed and crit chance. But 300 to 400 AD, high crit chance, high attack speed, they're ranged. All items that they have will apply any active procs that they've got, or sorry, passive procs that they've got, particularly Static Shiv. I believe, although I cannot confirm, that the Ghost can crit. That single champion becomes a super carry instantly. All that bonus AD combined with their attack speed turns them into Murderbot. And that is your goal for the entire game. Here's how to make it happen, starting with the early game. In the early game, in the laning phase of the game, essentially you need to play it safe. I recommend starting with 2 regeneration beads because your abilities cost health. And that allows you to spam your abilities a lot more than you usually would, take a few more hits than you usually would, and use your shield to soak the majority of the damage that you're taking. Because at this point, most people can't break through it very, very easily. This allows you to win a few trades, depending on who you're up against. If you're up against a ranged champion, you're kinda in trouble. If you're up against a hard melee champion, as in everything they do is melee, and their initiates a sort of an all-in maneuver, think Xinjiao, they can't really play against you particularly early. Some champions can, because they just simply out-damage you, particularly Renekton, because that guy is insane, and I feel like Renekton needs a nerf, but that's an entirely different discussion. You just sort of beat on the enemy, get farm where you can. You're not in a great place early game. Your 2 options for abilities to level are Mace of Spades, which is ideal if you are fighting them away from minions, or Creeping Death No, yes, hang on. Checking names of things. Yes, Creeping Death. Creeping Death is a protective shield of metal spikes that causes AoE damage, Sunfire Cape style, and additionally, it gives you armor and magic resist. Leveling either of those abilities are viable, because one provides the ability to fight from a retreat against a melee champion. Very, very strangely useful. The other options, Mace of Spades option in particular, gives you massive damage up to, I think, almost 3 times your AD if the target is on their own. You can just smack them with Mace of Spades, and if there's no one else to take the additional procs, all of the damage will combine to hit one person. Almost. There's a little bit of damage lost, but it's still an ungodly amount of damage output against isolated targets. You'll actually outdo a Kha'Zix in the isolated target scenario, which is very, very fun. Your early build options definitely look at getting health and sustainability over damage. You really only want to get 220, 240, maybe 250 AD. That's it. That's all you want, because any more than that, and you're risking yourself to become a glass cannon, which kind of works until you reach teamfights, and then you can't get the ghost. Additionally, having extra health in particular, say more mogs or 2, that means that you can get a ghost with high health, making it unlikely for that ghost to die. This all makes sense. That's essentially your late game play. Don't fight for a kill unless you're level 6, because you're unlikely to get it, and even then you want to gank, but if you can get an enemy ghost at level 6, thanks to a gank, you can take the enemy tower in one push, because you will just murder everything with the assistance of your friendly pal, the enemy team. The other items that you want to be considering getting nice and early are items that give you good chase potential. Mordekaiser has no initiate. He just can't do it. He can't get into a fight, and if the enemy has peel or escape, they will evade you with absolute ease. And that is your greatest weakness as a champion, and needs to be deeply, deeply considered in terms of figuring out your item build. So now on to how to actually win with this. Victory for an AD Mordekaiser player essentially comes in one way. You will be losing the game unless your team is pro and could be winning without you, because you are largely not useful. And this build is an extreme gambit. I cannot stress this enough. If you're playing AD Mordekaiser, you're playing to maybe win if you get lucky. Depends entirely on their peel, your team's crowd controls, and a whole bunch of other factors that you cannot control, meaning it's not intentionally skill-based. The only skill is not dying and collecting enough gold early on. What you have to do to bring yourself that victory is get into a large team fight, like I said at the start, get into a large team fight and capture an enemy for your side. Nuke them down if you have to, then back out of the fight, back right out, because you need to stay alive to control that thing. Stay on the edges so that you can still have the ghost impact, but there's a good chance that you could die. Particularly if you've taken a lot of damage going in, and you don't want to die, because then your team is down its ghost. Essentially, winning the game will come when the enemy just has a bad team fight, or you have a good team fight, and you pick off the enemy's AD carry, get yourself an extra AD carry on your team with extra health, extra damage, basically everything that an AD carry should not be able to accomplish. We're talking 500 damage per shot, with chance to crit, with a static shiv so that they deal extra damage, massive move speed because, oh, you got captain shoes, turns out that's a thing. Murder. Murder incarnate is that ghost. And then push like all hell. You can take 2 to 3 towers plus an inhibitor in one push with that assistance, because there's a good chance that in that team fight you've aced them completely. and if you haven't aced them, you now have enough force that you can 1v1 anybody, because it's not a 1v1, it's a 2v1, you've got backup. Anybody will be completely destroyed by that. But like I said, it is a huge gambit. Every time you play this build, there is a decent chance that you're just going to lose because there's nothing you can do to get that ghost. They're simply too skilled, or they've got too much heal on their support. Whatever it is, there's a good chance that you cannot win the game with your particularly unique strategy. You could up the ante a step. This adds to the gambit, and this is something that CivHD did some time ago. He pulled Mordekaiser with a Yorick. Yorick has the ability to create an additional ghost, which includes being able to create an additional ghost of the ghost that you captured in the first place, meaning that you could feed the enemy and then win using their strength against them. It is an insanely gambity tactic because it's dedicating 2 champions to a single task, and if that task fails, you've already lost. If you combined an AD Mordekaiser with that, you've got even less power in your team, because AD Mordekaiser is not a great champion on his own. He can win one-on-one fights with ease, but team fights he's essentially useless. Bring a Yorick into that. Yes, you've got massive damage output if things go right. Don't get me wrong, you're adding 2 AD carries to your team. That's just stupid. But on the other hand, it's just risky. It's just really, really risky. That's why it's a Gambit champion. It's a Gambit build. I only won 2 out of the 5 games I played as AD Mordekaiser, and one of the games that I won was actually played in the support role rather than top or mid, which would be strategically ideal. I honestly don't know how, and I suspect that with better analysis, just creeping death is a lot more useful than you'd expect in a support lane. So I might be looking at trying that out in the future. Until then, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Good night.